Stand by.
This is the Comedy Writer's own show, starring the writers for America's greatest comedians. From Hollywood, the American Broadcasting Company brings you transcribed an actual comedy writing session on the air. Working from a suggested outline for a radio show, our panel of writers will joke up a script just as they do in the writing sessions for their own popular programs. In addition to our regular panel, our guest writer tonight is Sherman Burns, writer for Groucho Marx. And here to guide our session is our moderator, radio's well-known producer, Ben Brady.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Comedy Writers Show. Before we get into our writing session, why don't you gentlemen on the panel introduce yourselves to the people? And perhaps you can tell us something about how you prepare your scripts when you're writing for your comedians.
Oh, I write for Bob Hope. My name is Roger Price, and I dictate to the secretary.
All right.
There's something funny about that. I don't know what it is. Mr. Burns.
Everybody finished? Oh, I write for Groucho Marx. My name is Sherman Burns. My girlfriend types my scripts.
That seems to be funny, too.
I write for Abbott and Costello. My name is Leonard Stern, and I have a very pretty secretary who transcribes my notes.
Well, I write for Eddie Cantor. My name is Sidney Fields. I type my own scripts. I'm married.
Well, as you've heard, our panel tonight consists of Mr. Fields and three guys who work late at the office. Tonight's outline...
I just got that.
Well, I hope you can give them faster than you get them, or we're in trouble. Anyhow, tonight's outline for a comedy show was suggested by Loretta Young. As you know, each week some well-known personality sends us an outline which serves as a basis for us to create a comedy script on the air. Reed Browning, will you please read Loretta Young's suggestion?
Gladly, Ben. Miss Young writes, quote, I'd like to see you do a Fred Allen type of program. For the opening spot between the comedian and his stooge, they could discuss vacations. Then for the second scene, I'd like to see what you could do with something like Allen's Alley. And for a guest star, you could use Allen's vaudeville sidekick, Jack Haley. And for a sketch, Allen and Haley could do a satire on looking for gold in Alaska.
All right, gentlemen, there's your challenge for tonight. Now remember, we have less than 30 minutes to complete a comedy script on the air. For the first spot of the comedy script we're going to write, Loretta Young wants us to talk about vacations. You have any ideas there?
Well, we could do about a vacation at the beach.
Yeah?
On the sand and everything.
Yeah? It's all right. Mr. Burns?
Well, yeah, Allen was an Fred Allen type comedian. You could say, he's Portland, you should have seen me at the beach. Portland could say, do you have your wood with him?
Yeah, I was just thinking, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Lenny.
Well, that's all
I was
right.
just thinking.
It's all right. If you have any ideas, Mr. Stern,
You know,
let's
it's
have
a
them.
heck of a time to interrupt. I have absolutely nothing to say.
That's nice.
No, my thought was, Fred Allen, he does backwoods stuff, too, Maine. I wasn't so anxious to put him at the beach right away. That was
All
my
right.
only contention.
All right, I'm always glad to accept two different ideas. That's good. Let's get into a good fight. Mr. Fields?
Why don't we say that he spent his vacation in Pittsburgh?
Tell me, Mr. Fields, whatever made you think of an industrial city like Pittsburgh as a place to enjoy a vacation?
Well, certainly. My wife's been there for 3 weeks. I'm enjoying every minute of it.
Now, Sidney, I've seen your wife, Emily. I've seen you with her, and I know you don't mean that.
Emily, it'd been better if you had said Marie. That's my wife's name.
Well, you see, one man's mistake is another man's joke.
That's right.
All right, let's go on. Any ideas here?
I'd like to get back to the beach.
You want to get back to the beach?
I'm sorry I ever took him away from it.
Well, let's have him go to a beach in Pittsburgh. It's the same thing.
All right, let's let Mr.
black
Burns
sand.
get on the beach.
Can I go on the beach?
Mr. Price.
Well, if we're going to follow, yeah, the beach is good, huh? If we're going to follow the Fred Allen format, it'd probably open with a show like Fred Allen's. He'd be talking to his wife, Portland. He always does at the first there. He'd be saying something like, talking about what he's doing on his vacation. He said, I just went out to Malibu on a yacht, and I wanted to get a good sunburn, good even tan, so I put on cold cream all over me, and then I put olive oil all over me, and then I put on some more grease and some butter, and I put the grease all over me, real even, so I'd get a good even tan. And she said, well, did you get a good tan? She says, no, every time I lay down on the boat, I kept sliding into the water.
Well, that's good, but the only thing I'm surprised at, Mr. Price, is that with your zany type of humor, talking about Fred and Portland, I'm surprised you didn't make some mention of the odd first name.
What's so odd about it? A lot of people are named Fred.
Oh, no. Oh, Mr. Stern.
Well, Roger mentioning sunburn gave me a thought. Fred, or a comedian like Fred, could say I was on a beach, and he says, did I get a burn? I was red. In fact, I was redder than anybody ever has been. And Portland says, what made you think you were so red? He says, well, I fell asleep, and when I woke up, there was a lobster trying to drag me under the boardwalk.
A girl lobster, no doubt. Mr. Burns.
Well, I started this beach business. I haven't been able to tell a joke yet.
All right, you can come in. If you
Well,
tell
I
it.
have it right now. Can I
Yeah,
say
okay.
it fast before
Okay,
something else?
go ahead.
Well, Alan could say, Portland, you should have seen me at the beach. And Portland could say, did you look good on the sand? And Alan could say, Portland, in a bathing suit, I look like a pair of pliers wearing a Band-Aid. I think I'll go to
Fields?
Pittsburgh.
Well, if we were writing a Fred Allen script here, we could do jokes on girls and wearing those new small French bathing suits. You know, that's always good.
That leaves us with very little to talk about.
Not much material in bathing suits.
No. What I'm trying to... Well, that is true. There is so little material in the bathing suits, and yet they cost $10, $15, $20, $30, $40, $50. My idea is that I don't think the girls are getting their money's worth out of those French bathing suits.
Yeah, but the fellas are.
Thank you, Leonard Stern. Now, let's forget about bathing. Let's drop the whole thing. I didn't mean it. I mean, we
All
dropped
right,
the
let's put it
subject.
this way. You want to retract that part.
Well, I think we
We'll
should
get
drop...
that past the censor more easily.
We could drop the bathing suits, maybe talk about something else. You know, a character.
When you drop the bathing suit, it's time to stop talking.
A zany character like this Portland stooge that Fred Allen shows use. She's always talking about her father or her mother. She might say something about her father. She'd say, Papa is a good swimmer. The other day, Papa decided to swim from New York all the way to Los Angeles, California, through the Panama Canal without stopping. And Alan would say, yeah, well, what happened? He says, well, he swam, and he got as far as San Diego, and he was afraid he couldn't make it, so he turned around and swam back.
That's I think that just lacks a slight element of credibility. Now, Mr. Price?
Well, you know, Portland, on the show, we could do something like that. She's always getting letters from her mother there, and she could be talking about her mother, and she says, we can't take Mother with us to the beach because Mother's afraid of water. Every time Mother goes in the water, she has to get an inner tube, and she blows the inner tube up and puts it around her, and she also puts on a life preserver. She bought it at an Army-Navy store, and she has water wings, and she puts all these things on. And the comic could say, well, I guess she must feel pretty safe. And the girl says, yes, she feels pretty safe, but it's awful crowded in the bathtub. Big picture joke.
It's a sight gag, yeah.
Yeah.
Any more ideas, Mr. Stern?
Well, maybe we could go up to Maine, leave the beach, and Fred Allen could say to Portland, I was up Maine, and I stayed at a hotel. And she said, did you have much fun? He says, well, I wrote so many cards to friends saying, having a wonderful time, I didn't get a chance to enjoy myself.
All right, Mr. Burns?
Well, I like that hotel kick. I think you could say that it was a very, very, very courteous hotel, that every morning at 6:30 the maid used to wake me up to tell me my do not disturb sign fell down.
All right. Do you want to go along with that, Mr. Field?
Well, if they're talking about hotel and the vacation up in Maine, a comedian like Allen in the script, I guess, could say, Portland, I just spent a whole week up in the backwoods part of Maine at a resort hotel. And she says, well, where is it? He says, well, it's kind of hard to explain. There are two routes to get there. The first route, you take a train as far as the train goes, then you get off and you take a bus. And you ride the bus until you get to the end of the line. Then you get on a horse. And you ride the horse until you get to the forest that's so thick that you can't get through with the horse. And you take a big hatchet and you chop your way through the forest until you get to a river. When you get to the river, you get in a canoe, and you ride in the canoe till you come to a waterfall. Then you get off the canoe, because you can't go over the waterfall in a canoe. And then you go down to the end of the waterfall, and then you come to a mountain, and you climb over the top of this mountain, and then you walk 35 miles, and then you get to the hotel. And she says, well, that's one route. How about the other route? He says, you wouldn't like that. That's the long way.
That joke came the long way, too. Mr. Price?
Well, they say they'll be up in the Maine woods, and they hire an Indian guide. As the Indian guide is a wonderful Indian guide. His name is Leaping Elk, who run like wind. And he has a wife, Princess Rising Moon, who shine like gold. And they have a lovely daughter, too, Little Weasel, who bring home sailors.
That's interesting, Mr. Stern.
I think I went out with her.
You know about the girl who kissed so many sailors she had bell-bottom lips?
You want to take it, Mr.
Yeah, Roger's thought about Indians gave me a thought that Fred could say that he went to the reservation and the Indians were showing cowboy and Indian pictures, only they were running them backwards. And Portland says, why were they running the cowboy and Indian pictures backwards? And she said, that's the only way they can have the Indians chasing the cowboys.
No, I think we've gone far enough on that. We've done that interview now. Now, according to...
Just thought that would help the atmosphere.
Well, you keep doing that while I read this. According to Loretta Young's outline here, we should now enlist Alan, or now visit Allen's Alley. Now, I'm afraid we won't have time to do all the characters in the alley. It takes too long, so if you gentlemen have any preference, do you want to choose? Mr.
I think we should
Price?
do the one that's been pretty successful. We could do the exaggerated version of the Southern senator, like Cleghorn. Senator Cleghorn.
That's good.
Pretty funny character.
Anybody else? Mr. Byrne?
Well, before they go to Allen's Alley, I think usually Mr. Allen has a topic to discuss. You know, to that Bill Brown's
Yes,
out the
he
routine
does.
in the
Yeah,
outside.
he always asks
he
a
introduces
question.
the
Yeah, he
alley
asks a
that way.
question.
Asks a question. Mr. Field?
Well, his question for tonight could be, what question should my question be tonight? Say, on the way to Allen's Alley, couldn't he stop at that hotel up in Maine? Because I got a funny thought about that hotel up in Maine. You know, the
Come
hotel
back.
in Maine, it's built on the border between Maine and the United States.
Yeah, we're
And
taking
some
the
of them-
long road, Sidney.
Oh.
We're coming back to it. Mr. Price?
I got a joke. I think I do by Cleghorn. I think.
Oh, Ben. Before
This
we
is
go
known
to
as Mr. Stern, the interrupter. Go ahead, Leonard.
I feel guilty now. But before Allen goes to the alley, doesn't Portland always say, well, shall we go, Mr. Allen? And Allen says, this is something I think a lot of people wait for, as the so-and-so said to the so-and-so, in the whatchamacallit, let's do this.
Yeah, I think,
it's a thingamajig, isn't it?
That's right.
Sort of. It's the simple things like if one moron said to the other moron, we're off. You know, just something like that.
Yeah.
That's the idea.
Mr. Price?
The senator could say to Mr. Allen, he could be telling him how he's pretty sore at President Truman. And Allen says, how come? He said, well, it's because of all the things that the president has been calling Congress recently. He says, last week, he called the Congress something that they'll never forgive him for. Allen said, what's that? And the senator says, he called us back. Very topical.
Yes, I like that. Mr. Fields?
I can't get away from that idea I got for the hotel. That's it. Oh, could the senator be visiting him in the hotel in Maine?
If you can't get away from the idea, I'm afraid we'll have to leave you at that hotel. Now, Mr. Burns?
Well, Uncle Sidney, tell the joke.
Get on, Uncle
I got to
Sidney,
hear
get
this
him.
joke.
A vote of confidence. We'll see.
Yeah.
Can Cindy tell the joke?
Yeah.
All
Got
right.
any
Uncle
Indians in
Sidney,
it?
tell a
Let her
joke.
tell it.
Well, the senator could say, I'm mad at Congress. I've got a plan for world peace, but nobody will listen to me. And Alan says, a plan for world peace? Well, what is it? He said, my idea would be this. Take all the people in Czechoslovakia and move them to Poland. All the people in Poland move them to France. All the people in France move to Italy. All the people in Italy, you move to Spain. And he said, well, how will that promote world peace? He says, people will be so busy learning a new language, they won't have time to fight.
Now that you've been vindicated, let's get back to Alan's Alley.
That's not the joke.
You want to tell another one?
No.
Mr. Burns.
Well, this is Claghorn could say, he says, son, he says, I've been campaigning for re-election, and yesterday I sat down on my campaign pin. He says, I'm kind of glad it happened, because this is all the years I've been in politics. This is the first time I ever knew what I stood for.
Mr. Stern?
Yeah, well, the senator could say, Fred, where have you been for your vacation? He says, I was up in Maine, and there's a very funny story I got to tell you. And Sidney Fields knows it.
And I'll tell you somebody else who knows it. There's a little girl out there. He knows it.
No, I bet she doesn't know. This is an idea hit me. I know it's knocking me out. The hotel is on half. The hotel is half on the Canadian border and half in the United States, see? And the room...
I'm getting a signal that you're a little too close to the microphone.
Anyway, the lobby and the bedrooms of the hotel and the dining room, they're all in the United States, see? And the rest of the hotel is in Canada.
Can I have
And,
the water?
and Fred says he can't sleep at night because all night long he hears people hollering, how much longer are you going to be in Canada?
Mr. Price.
Oh, I had a thought about this. Talking about politics, they could be talking about the high prices, and the senator says it's terrible that the prices are so high now that the used car dealers have taken over meat. Every time you look up in the sky, this Honest John, the used pot roast dealer.
Mr. Burns?
Well, I think you can build on that meat today. He says that all the price of meat is so high in California today that all the drive-ins are converting to fly-ins.
Mr. Fields?
Prices are so high when you're going to buy 25 cents worth of butter, they charge you 35 cents.
Yeah, Mr. Stern?
The money is printed on Kleenex because these days it's so easy to blow a buck.
All right, we're still in the alley now. Mr. Stern?
Well, maybe we leave the senator and go on to some other house in the alley. It might be,
All
an
right.
idea we might...
Do you want to
the next-
start with one?
Well, the next house, what is that? Somebody like Titus
Titus
Moody.
Moody.
Titus Moody is
A
there,
New
yeah.
England farmer, talks a lot, screwball inventions and
Yeah.
screwball ideas, isn't it? Well, here's a thought. Fred would say, how are things going on the farm, Titus? And he says, oh, wonderful. In the past year, he says, I've put in an electric refrigerator, an electric stove, an electric furnace, an electric mixmaster. He says, next year it's going to even be better. And Fred says, why? He says, we're putting in electricity.
Mr. Price?
He could be talking, Titus could be talking about his family, you know. And Mr. Allen says, how do you get along with your family? He says, fine, we're pretty happy about the way my boy Oswald is getting along, because for a while he was sort of retarded. That up until he's 4 years old, we always kept him in the dark. And Allen says, you always kept him in the dark, how come? He says, well, his mother was nearsighted, and she kept putting the diaper on the wrong end.
All right, gentlemen, I think we've spent enough time with Mr. Moody and his farm and
We didn't
the
even get
alley.
a chance to knock on the door.
Before we go any further, let's have a commercial from...
Oh, Ben,
What?
before we do a commercial, couldn't we do one of those
Somebody will have to sit on Mr. Field.
screwball commercials that we usually do? We might try a watch company like, Gruen Watch has their commercials. Maybe we could try a screwball company.
All right. Do you have an idea for a funny commercial?
Well, I put myself in the corner again, didn't I?
At least, I must admit, you're courageous. You start a lot of ideas. Mr. Price?
Be good. Tico Watch Company. You could say a Tico watch. You have a commercial. A fellow started, he said, the Tico watch is the most complete watch on the market, most complete wristwatch on the market today. Every watch comes equipped with its own wrist.
I think that's good. I'll accept that. Mr. Field?
Well, that's the kind of a thing you can build up on. He says, Tico watches come complete with a very good-looking band. And the sells for only $9,000. After all, Harry James doesn't work for nothing.
Any others? Mr. Burns?
Well, this is if your Tico watch is empty, has nothing inside, just come to us and we'll give you the works.
Mr. Price?
You can say the Tico watch operates on an entirely new and revolutionary principle. The hand stands still and the watch goes around and around.
Revolutionary. Mr. Stern?
He kills me with this watch. The announcers, and remember, the Tico watch is indestructible. If you doubt this, go up in an airplane. Jump out at 20,000 feet without a parachute. And if anything happens to that Tico watch, you bring it back to us and we'll give you a new one.
All right, I think that's enough of the commercial. Now, before we continue with the Comedy Writers Show, here's a word from our announcer, Reed Browning.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a fact that every minute of the day an accident happens on one of America's streets, roads, or highways. Our National Safety Council is working hard to make the public aware of this shocking accident rate, but it can't do the entire job. That's why today we're asked to start observing all the rules of safety. For example, as a motorist, make sure your car is always in good condition. Tests reveal that 1 car in 7 stopped for traffic violations has bad brakes. Keep your driving speed down, too. As a pedestrian, look both ways before crossing streets, and don't cross against the lights. Be careful when you get out of vehicles on the traffic side. It's one of the biggest causes of accidents. Remember, accidents don't always happen to other people. Start being accident conscious today. And now back to the Comedy Writers Show, where Sid Fields, writer for Eddie Cantor, Sherman Burns, writer for Groucho Marx, Leonard Stern, writer for Abbott and Costello, and Roger Price, writer for Bob Hope, are writing a comedy script on the air based on an outline suggested by actress Loretta Young. And now, here again is our moderator, Ben Brady.
Thank you, Reed. Now, gentlemen, in following the comedy script outline sent in by Loretta Young, we are now to introduce into the script Jack Haley as the guest star. Mr. Fields?
Well, I used to write for Fred Allen some years ago, and one thing I know, he likes to open his guest spots fresh, snappy. And we might put in something very like, for instance, he comes in, he says, "Hello, Jack." And Jack says, "Hiya, Fred." Clever stuff like that. We could put-
Aren't you afraid that's over the audience's head? How long did it take you to write that, Sidney?
I think some shows have been stealing that.
Mr. Stern?
Well, maybe after Sidney's
pardon me, did you say shows have been stealing that?
Yes, sir.
Petty larceny, huh? Isn't that off? I should have kept my big mouth shut.
As a general rule, I'd agree with you. Mr. Stern?
I'm trying to think of where I was. I had a thought. Oh, yes. Fred comes on and he says, Jack Haley's a guest. Jack comes on and he says, Fred, this radio racket is wonderful. I'm in this new show, Inside USA, but I miss radio. And Alan says, yes, radio is wonderful. No makeup, short hours. He said, and millions of people listen to you all over the world. rather all over the United States, there are millions of people listening. He says, I can just see them. He says, in Minnesota, there's a farmer sitting on his rocking chair. He's listening. In New York, there's a family at the dinner table. They're listening. He said, in Georgia, there's a young couple sitting on a couch. The boy has his arms around the girl. Well, you can't expect everybody to be listening.
Mr. Burns?
Well, I mean, they could reminisce about their old days. For a comedian like Fred Allen, he could say, he says, Jack, remember all those girls you used to have? He says, is it still the same? Do you still have all those girls? And he says, no. He says, I think I'm going crazy, Jack. He says, Fred, he says, I think I'm really going crazy. He says, I have a picture of Lana Turner over my dresser and a picture of Hedy Lamarr near my bed and a picture of Dorothy Lamour is on my sofa. And he says, I think I'm going crazy. And Allen could say, why? And Haley would say, he says, all night long I dream of Gene Autry's horse.
Mr. Fields?
Well, if we're writing a script in which Alan has Haley as a guest, and Haley is the star of Inside USA, that big Broadway show, naturally, there are girls in the show like that, and Alan would ask him how he's doing with the girls in the show, and Haley could come back and say, well, I'm not doing very well with the girls. I don't know what's wrong with me. And Alan said, maybe it's your approach. What kind of a line do you use when you're out with the girls? And Haley could say, well, I was out with a girl last night riding in Central Park, and after we were riding for a while, I told her we were out of gas, and she slapped my face. And Alan says, what's wrong with that? That's a standard line. He says, I know, but we were riding bicycles at the time.
Mr. Price?
Alan could be telling him about he says, I was pretty lucky because when I was young, my father was sort of an advanced thinker, you know, and an intelligent guy, and he took me aside when I was 17 years old, and he said, son, there's something you ought to know. There's two kind of people in the world, boys and girls. And he said, that information has saved me. It was a wonderful help to me, that information. And Jack says, well, how come that information is so important to you? And Alan says, up to that time, I'd wasted a lot of money buying the wrong kind of clothes. Good night.
I love the way that Roger...
leaving the studio.
Sorry.
I
love the way that Roger Price speaks, you know, with that up and down talk. Up and down, up. His voice goes up. Roger Price, were you born on a roller coaster?
That's the remnants of a West Virginia accent.
West Virginia?
But people, they go up and down the mountains.
I've been in West Virginia. I like it's quiet there. A lot of still.
No, that's not true. No, as a matter of fact, it's a documentary note. It's not true because West Virginia is pretty industrialized now. They got a lot of big factories in here. The people they got in universities. People aren't like that anymore. People they got their feet on the ground and everything like that. Oh, I'm afraid to say that again.
Listen in again
So
next week to Roger and
feet on the
Sidney
ground.
talking about West Virginia.
No,
I thought Roger said that they both people have their feet on the ground.
Yeah, well, they do.
Well, they have to. They don't have shoes.
Now let's go on now. Any other ideas?
Well,
Mr. Burns.
we can get back to girls. There's a straight line. Somebody must have something for. Well, no, he says, Jack, he says, gee, I'm worried about this girl I'm going with Fred now. Now, Fred, she's a little young, and I'm really worried about her because she's so round-shouldered. And Fred could say, don't you know what's the matter with her? And he says, well, yeah. He says, yesterday we found out she was wearing a garter belt with her bobby socks.
Mr. Fields?
That's a funny picture, isn't it? Wouldn't it be cute here if we had Haley and Alan? You know, Haley and Alan were both great stars in the old days of vaudeville.
Yes,
they
they
might
were.
discuss their days in vaudeville together because they were both very fine.
Yeah.
Might be funny, get some fun. They could talk about the old days and compare the theaters that they play with today with the theaters in those days.
We're
you know?
getting a lot of agreement here, but not enough jokes.
Well, so,
We're all in accord now.
Well, those kind of things you can shake out of your sleeve. For instance, Alan would say, I remember one theater we played in Des Moines, the Rialto Theater in Des Moines, Iowa. The theater was so small, when you took a bow on the stage, your dandruff fell off in the lobby.
Mr. Burns.
Well, that was before my time, but I've heard about those small theaters in vaudeville in the old days. I know about that. Groucho once told me about one that was so small that the fire eater was eating book matches.
Mr.
They
Price?
should say the theater was so small and so narrow that when Nelson Eddy was on the bill, instead of singing shortening bread, he had to sing Rye Crisp.
Mr. Fields?
I just got a thought.
We're not going back to that hotel now.
No. For a minute, that Alaska's idea left me cold. But I got a thought here now.
Now you're warm
This is
again.
a
All
thought.
right.
We can say that Haley and Alan were going through the Klondike, and they come on two guys. And the two guys are talking. One guy is saying, cat, C, brr, A, brr, T, brr. And then the other guy says, dog, D, brr, O, brr, G, brr. And Alan said, what goes on here? And he says, they're having a cold spell.
It's a good thought. Mr. Price?
They're talking about being up there in Alaska, and they meet one prospector. Alan is telling about one prospector, and this prospector's been up there in Alaska 25 years, but he's a perfectly normal guy. It hasn't affected him at all, and he leads a perfectly normal, happy life. He's married to a walrus, and they get along fine. They live in he and the walrus have a little girl, and they named the little girl Herman. And Alan says, if he and the walrus had a girl, why did they name it Herman? And he says, they had to. It had a mustache. Looked like the walrus.
All right, this is going fine now. Can you keep it rolling, Mr. Stern?
Well, between Roger and Sidney on both sides, I feel like I'm watching a ping pong game. I haven't said a word.
And laughing pretty hard at it, too.
Well, I'm enjoying it. But there's this thought they may be lost in the icy wastes, and they haven't got enough food left. And Haley says, Fred, you better go on without me. He says, just enough food for one of us. And Alan says, I wouldn't go on without you. He says, we've meant too much to each other for too long a time. He says, I would rather perish than go on without you. He says, how could I face other people, Jack, if I left you here? He says, Jack, I would never feel good if I went and left you. He says, no, Jack, I couldn't do it. No matter what you say, Jack, I can't leave you. And Jack says, but Fred, he says, okay, you talked me into it.
Mr. Byrne?
Well, if they were going on a trip like that over the snow, they'd have to have dogs. You could build a very, very funny routine of going to a used dog dealer. You know, oh, you say they could look at the dogs and say, how long would it take us to get some new dogs? These dogs look awful. The dealer could say, he says, well, I can't promise a delivery on any new dogs right now. He says, because our factory just ran away with a Great Dane.
Mr.
I don't
Field.
say much, but when I do, I really die.
Well, Alan could say, you know, this isn't really cold. This isn't my first time in
What's
this kind
this,
of country.
the joke or the weather?
No, he says to Haley, he said, this isn't, if we're writing this into the script, it would fit because it's
Oh,
an
I
anecdote
see.
kind of a
I
thing.
see, yeah.
He said, the first time I was up here, it was really cold up here in the Klondike. He said, in fact, it was so cold that 9 of us had to sleep in one bed so we could keep warm. And the following morning, I happened to be walking down the streets of Nome, Alaska, and a grizzled old miner walked up to me and says, hiya, partner, remember me? And I said to him, no. He says, you should remember me. He says, I was one of the 9 fellows that slept in bed with you last night. And he says, no, I don't remember you at all. I remember that 9 guys slept in bed with me, but I don't remember you. And the old man says, well, let me refresh your memory. And he stuck his foot in Alan's face.
With a big, fat, black pencil, I will strike that joke out of the script. Mr. Byrne?
Well, these dogs could be, go back to the dogs.
Well, if that's where you'd like to go ahead. I like the used dog idea.
These dogs could be very modern dogs, very, very, very exclusive dogs. In fact, the driver doesn't look at them and say mush. He just looks and says Wheaties.
Mr. Price.
They could meet a prospector, and he says, he's in awful condition. He's in the hospital. They say, what happened to you? He said, well, I had a wonderful $1 million gold claim, and some claim jumpers jumped my claim. They shot me 3 times. I was trying to get back to my house, and lightning struck my house and burned it down. And then I was trying to get to my dog sled to help, and an earthquake came along and opened up a crack in the ground, and my sled fell in and broke both legs. He said, then I finally got to a house, and just as I got to the house, there was a big storm, and the house fell down, and a big mirror, 50-pound mirror, fell on my head, cracked my skull, and the mirror broke. He says, that's what's worrying me. And Alan says, what's worrying you? He says, do you think I'm going to have 7 years bad luck?
All right, gentlemen, I believe we've managed to put together a rough, but very rough draft of the script that Loretta Young called for. Now, before we conclude our comedy writing session on the air, I'm sure our listeners would like to hear some more of the behind-the-scenes stories about the famous comedians you work for. Could you tell us some of those? Any ideas, Mr. Price?
Well, it's the real funny little line. Maybe it doesn't mean anything to anybody but me, but I think it's what happens when you're writing. You're writing comedy material for people, and it goes through. Sometimes the comedians are great, like Mr. Hope. He picks all his own material. He's a wonderful judge, and also could write his own shows if he wanted to. But sometimes you go through advertising agency people. And, I remember once I wrote a little spot, and I took it up to Chicago, and I took it up to the agency, and one of the men there, big man, and controlled a lot of radio shows, and he took the stuff, and he looked at the especially the opening thing there, and he just laughed, he really did. He fell down, and finally he gets all through. I say, how do you like it? He says, Jesus, that's great. He says, but it's only a joke.
Mr. Field?
Well, this is a number of people have asked me about a certain thing that they've heard Eddie Cantor say, and it really actually happened, and I happened to be present when it happened, and so I think they'd like to know just the origin of it. Some years ago, we were at the Arrowhead Springs Hotel in one of the fine resorts here in Southern California with Eddie, and he happened to be in the lobby. And we were sitting around the lobby there, and a dear, sweet little old lady came in, and she had her arms loaded with grips, and she had bundles and hat bags and everything, and it was a revolving door. And she couldn't get through the door, so she noticed Eddie, and she said, here, boy. And Eddie looked at her, he said, boy. I beg your pardon. He said, boy, he said, I'll have you know, lady, that I'm the father of 5 girls, 5 daughters. And she said, would you mind repeating that? And he said, not if I can help it.
Mr. Byrne.
Well, I'd just like to say that after the show, I'd like you to all come to my house. We're going to have a coming out party for my brain. No, Groucho told me a very funny story. Years ago when he was living in New York, just a boy. He used to go into the little bar around the corner, sneak into the bar every day and eat up all the free lunch. And the bartender used to get awfully mad at him. So one day, this was going on for months and months, every day, go in and sneak in the back and eat up all the free lunch. So finally the bartender said, I'm going to fix that kid, and he put dog biscuits on. The next day, Groucho came in, looked at the bartender, ate up all the dog biscuits, and walked out. Then for about 3 months, he didn't show up. Finally, the bartender says, well, I guess I got rid of him, so he put the free lunch back on. The next day, Groucho came in, ate up all the free lunch, looked at the bartender and said, what's the matter, no more cookies?
Mr. Stern, do you have something you can tell us?
Yeah, Ben, you know, this is a funny business we're in. Radio, you're always battling the element of time. And this is something that strikes home with me. 3 years ago, I wanted to get married during the winter. And unfortunately, we were unable to get married because I couldn't get any time off. So we set the wedding for the summer. And came the summer, and I was working on a show, and the show was the same night as my wedding. So I had to rush away from the wedding, rush back. We didn't have a honeymoon. We didn't have an anniversary. My wife was upset. I said, don't worry, next year, a writer can think in advance. I'll get off a few days, and we'll have a honeymoon. We'll have an anniversary. I'll take you places. What happened the next year was that the other writer on the show got sick, and I couldn't possibly celebrate our anniversary, and my wife was furious. So I said, don't worry, darling. Next year, I promise you, regardless of what happens, I will see that we get a vacation. After all, I'm not an actor. I don't have to believe in the adage that the show must go on. I'll hand in the script, and don't worry. I'll get away from the station. I won't have to spend any time there, I promise you. Ladies and gentlemen, today is my anniversary.
Well, that's all the time we have for the behind-the-scenes stories tonight. We've had a comedy show written on the air and some stories about America's top comedians. Join us again next week for another session, won't you? This is Ben Brady saying good night for Sid Fields, Roger Price, Leonard Stern, Sherman Burns, and the Comedy Writers Show.
Tune in next week to hear the writers for Groucho Marx, Bob Hope, Abbott and Costello, and Eddie Cantor in their transcribed comedy writing session on the air. This is a Frank Cooper presentation and was produced and directed by Cy Fisher. This is ABC, the American